Ronnie, how are you?
Hey, not a complaint in the world, sir. How about yourself?
Doing great. Good to talk again. It's been too long since we've done this. I know our fans are in an uproar, so we got to give the people what they want.
It has been too long. I mean, we have Vegas to blame for some of that.
That's true. Yeah. So last time we talked, we were about to head out to Vegas, learn all about the exciting world of AI and report our findings. So
Yep.
gives us a lot to talk about and see what's new.
So, channel partners, what was your favorite memory or biggest takeaway, would you say?
Biggest takeaway, I think, was just walking the floor and talking to some of the companies I've never heard of. So all the usual suspects were there as we
Right.
suspected. But there's a lot of companies doing cool things. I'll name drop one, Quark, which I thought was a very cool company, very relevant to channel partners. They're harnessing AI to really help make partnerships more successful. And we were talking a little bit about the agentic model and how that could kind of play into that. So it's very cool to see new software companies and new ideas out there as opposed to slapping an AI label on top of an old thing.
Right. That
How
was
about you?
actually my takeaway. You took that away from me,
Oh no.
was how many companies are putting that on existing products. And I feel like it's almost spaghetti, right? Like they're wondering if people are going to call that bluff. Because
Yeah.
I've definitely seen some where it's like, oh, that looks like it was doing the exact same thing it did before. You were calling it an algorithm before, now you're calling it AI.
Yeah.
That's always fun. But then there were actually some really nice ones there where it's like, oh, okay, that's a an actual notable improvement over what the product was doing 6 months ago. So I
Yeah.
think the landscape is really funny there, how some folks are kind of taking advantage of the hype, and then the other ones are actually doing some meaningful things with text prediction.
Yeah. And it seems like there's definitely a mix between hype and staying relevant. So, not to attack legacy type of vendors that are out there, but it seems like the ones that are doing the best are really embracing where AI can help and making their offering better, which I think is similar to what most companies are or should be doing in terms of what does it all mean? How can we harness AI while still sticking to our core competencies and what we've done well for years, right?
Yeah, there has to be some division there. So it's nice to see that some of that is actually taking shape. But I do think there's going to be some casualties in that war with folks that are going to fall by the wayside who either refuse to adapt and adopt some of this new technology because at a certain point I think some of these will just feel dated
Yeah.
if there's not some type of infusion in there of this new power that we have.
Yeah, and so I know, kind of half jokingly, we talked about the machines taking over, the Terminator type
Right.
of scenario. And it might not be as drastic as that, but it's more of a matter of relevance, I think, of, at what point could AI do what you do? And is that necessarily a bad thing, or does that mean you can find new and better things to do while leveraging this power?
So it's funny, I was just watching some interviews recently, because I'm the boring guy that watches AI stuff off of work hours. The person currently in charge of Google DeepMind, along with the former CEO of Google, recently were interviewed almost at the same time. And some of the things that they had to say on where we are in the stream of time as it relates to AI and what the future is going to look like was staggering. I think it was Larry Page, was the one that had mentioned, oh, everybody says, hey, AI is going to take my job and all of us are going to be left with nothing to do. And he made this comparison with the loom. He says, dating that far back, when it went from men and women that were stitching or creating their own clothes to the loom, which was a fantastic, great technological advancement. And everybody thought, my goodness, everybody now that ever stitched clothing is going to go out of, will never have work again. And then I heard the correlation to the ATM machine. I'm sorry, not ATM machine, ATM. How when that came out, everyone thought, "Oh my goodness, no one's ever going to walk into a bank branch again because you can do everything right at the
Right.
machine."
Yeah.
And it's interesting in all of these like revolutions, it never ends up being the case where humans were no longer needed. What ended up being was, I think we're faced with a very similar thing now. So now, if I opt to speak to a person at the bank, it really is for a reason. Like if I need cash, I'll get cash on my own. If I need to deposit a check, I'm either A, doing that with my cell phone, or if I have to do it at a ATM, God forbid, um, I don't need to see a person for that.
Yeah.
But if the amount on my deposit receipt doesn't match, or if there was an extra fee that was added, I can get to a person way quicker than I probably could 15 years ago, pre-ATM, where you had an older generation that wanted to chat
Yeah.
with every bank teller and talk about the grandkids because now those people can go to an ATM machine. So I think
And
we're
yeah,
faced with
10
that again.
people waiting in line ahead of you to get cash when they could have gone to the ATM. And but it's a good analogy too because we know banks will always make money, right?
Right.
And will innovate in the way to make the most money they can, so they can lend more and make more. So the ATM did just that, and
But the
bankers
humans
were
didn't
still needed.
disappear. Right? They didn't disappear. I don't recall this transition where there used to be 50 people at the bank. Now there's 30. Like there's still, from where I am, there's still the same amount of people in the bank. They're just able to serve those people faster. So to me, that's not a bad thing. And even for
Not
what
bad
I
at
do
all. Yeah.
today, Google Gemini and ChatGPT, they're more fluent than me, and they can write and craft a better email than me. But so I just use them for that. Right? Like it's not that my boss is saying, "Yeah, I don't need Ronnie anymore. I have Gemini." It's Ronnie is way more productive when he uses all of these tools.
And then Ronnie can do what Ronnie does best.
Yeah. I mean, which is run my mouth. I don't know. That's the way it still seems like. And again, until somebody proves me wrong, that's still for me the way it's kind of shaken out. There's not a scenario where everybody's out of work.
Yes. Where is this going? Because I know there's the ATM analogy, the industrial revolution, the AI revolution now. We we were talking before about the new Gartner report came out that said spending on AI is projected to skyrocket, reaching six. I got it here, 644 billion in 2025, up 76+%. But the conversations I'm having, I don't know if that's more of an initiative they need to figure out where to spend the money, or where is that actually going. Going back to channel partners and conversations I've had, people are a little hesitant to move from something that they think works to spend money on AI because it's the future. So I'm trying to figure out what's the best balance and where that spend is being allocated wisely.
So I had a conversation today. C-suite in charge of all of marketing for a very large car automotive group. VP of marketing oversees many, many car dealerships, and they're at this impasse where they're like, all right, well, we're seeing AI, and his exact words to me, look, I'm inundated with these ads on Facebook, and I saw you guys' ad. I see other ones that are tailored to me because they know what I'm researching, they see what I look at on LinkedIn, what I've Googled, etc. The ads are following me now. So I think we want to do something, but I don't know what that is. And that's how our conversation started, you know? So, and I don't think his scenario is unique, right? So a lot of us are being inundated with all of this info about how it's life changing, and this will get 40% better. This will get 30% quicker. And if you're not using agentic AI, your business is going to fail. You know, so we're receiving all
Yeah,
of these messages. But even for this gentleman, after I laid out some solutions, educated him a bit on the landscape of AI and agentic AI, the differences, how to sniff out the fake ones, you know, it really comes down to, you know, he has to do it, and many other people have to do it. You have to prove to your CIO and your CFO, how will this actually impact the business? Not hype, not, hey, this could be better. We might be able to
yeah,
do this. But he told me he's tasked with coming back with specific use cases. What exactly will it improve? What's our ROI? And I think that's where it's at, right? Because there's 100, 200, 300 AI tools, you know, that can do this and do that. And, you know, you could, as an individual, I could easily spend another 100, $150 a month on 10, 20, and $30
yeah.
tools, right?
Just
Like, oh,
personally,
I
yeah,
got an AI note taker. I have an AI that helps me with automated emails. I have another AI one for generating pictures and videos. You know, so like but you have to tie it to something. And if I'm doing
yeah.
that on a
And
personal level, then
but I think it relates to software spend in general too, because how many companies have we worked for or worked with that have thought this software application looked really cool, so they'll commit to spending however many tens or hundreds of thousands of dollars over the next 3 years, and then they're stuck with it and they're not really fully utilizing it.
right.
You hit the nail on the head, I think, with ROI. I had a conversation recently with a nonprofit. So auto dealerships, very sales driven. ROI can be tied to sales go up. We made a good choice. But in the nonprofit space, just because their primary objective is not profit by definition doesn't mean they don't need to have a return on investment. They need to spend money. A lot of that goes into paying people, where maybe you can only afford to hire another part time employee for 10 hours per week. Well, what if there's an AI agent that could free up 20 hours per week of what your current team is doing now and allow them to use their time more effectively? There's definitely ROI there, and probably a better work environment for the people that you have.
Sure. Yeah, so I think it's a crossroads, right? Because the people are setting, companies are setting aside budget, you know, for these initiatives, but you know, I don't think it's being handed out like candy, right? So there has to be some very real, what does this change for us? And no, don't tell me how cool it is. I'm not interested in the UI. I don't want to say we're using AI just for the sake of using AI.
Yeah, I agree. Well, yeah, that's very relevant. I think it's been interesting, especially since you and I have started chatting here on our video platform, kind of following, even going back a couple months ago, where we thought things would be to how it's really shaking out.
Right.
Hindsight is 2020, but definitely curious with this Garner report, to see, looking back in the beginning of 2026, how it all played out and where that spend went. And I'm assuming it'll continue to rise, and other sectors may take a hit as a result. But whether you're an individual or business, I think that the time to embrace in the right way is definitely here. It'll kind of separate the wheat from the chaff within the short term, from
For
what I'm
sure.
seeing.
Well, I know before we wrap it up, we wanted to share that we had our chance to do our first external interview while we were in Vegas.
Yes.
And you were kind enough to let me sit down with a big channel influencer there, Ron L. Richards. So we will start cutting that up here shortly with your help, of course, figuring out how we can disseminate that to some of the fans. I think he's going to put some of it on his socials, on his podcast as well. But very good interview. Someone that's been in our space, telecom and channel in general, and we actually speak about there too, how he's navigating and how these businesses are using it today. So something to look
Very
forward
cool.
to.
Yeah, he's doing it the right way. I really enjoyed his talk while we were in Las Vegas, getting to see him on stage, and looking forward to getting that out there and getting some feedback. So very excited.
Yeah, good stuff.
Thanks, Ronnie. Always a pleasure.
Always, man. Thanks
We'll do
for
this again soon. We're
yes.
not traveling as much, so
No,
let's chat again next week.
my feet's on the ground. Next week
Yes,
it
sir.
is.
All right. Take care.